It is 5:30 in the morning on the southern tip of Okinawa, and Ushi Okishima is already in her garden. She is 108 years old. Her hands are deep in the soil, pulling daikon radishes she planted 3 months ago. When she finishes, she will wash the roots under a cold tap, slice them thin, and press them into a clay crock filled with rice bran and sea salt. By tomorrow, those radishes will be alive with bacteria that most Americans pay $60 a month trying to swallow in a capsule. Ushi spends about $3, not per day, per week, on the 3 fermented foods that anchor her entire diet. She has been doing this since before antibiotics existed, and at 108, she still walks to her neighbor's house every afternoon, applies perfume before she goes, and tells anyone who will listen that she is not done yet. Ushi is not exceptional in Okinawa. She is average. That is the point. Now meet Karen. She is 61, lives outside Dallas. She runs 3 times a week, takes a premium probiotic that costs $58 a month, drinks a greens powder every morning, and has a cabinet with 11 different supplements. Her gastroenterologist just put her on a second medication for chronic bloating and acid reflux. She does everything right by modern Western standards, and her gut is still failing her. Karen is also average. That is also the point. Okinawa has roughly 40 to 50 centenarians for every 100,000 people. The United States has about 10 to 20. Traditional Okinawans are 80% less likely to develop coronary heart disease, half as likely to get colon cancer, and they spend 97% of their lives completely free of disability. Not just alive, functional, independent, walking to the garden at 5:30 in the morning while Karen is setting a phone alarm to remember her 3rd pill of the day. And here is what I need you to hold on to for the next 10 minutes. By the end of this video, I am going to show you the one daily practice the Okinawa centenarian study researchers track for 30 years, a practice that is not a food, not a supplement, not an exercise, that directly activates a gene your body uses to repair DNA and resist disease. They almost threw it out of the data because it seemed too simple to count as science. It turned out to outperform every single ingredient in their database. You need to stay for that. But first, let me address what you have probably already tried. You have been told that gut health comes in a bottle, that if you just find the right probiotic strain, the right colony count, the right enteric coating, your digestion will transform. That logic sounds reasonable. It is wrong. When the American Gastroenterological Association assembled its panel of gastroenterologists to review the clinical evidence in 2020, they expected to confirm what the supplement industry had been promising for years. Instead, they found insufficient evidence to recommend most over-the-counter probiotic pills for conditions like IBS, Crohn's, or ulcerative colitis. Whole food microbial diversity was vastly superior to isolated capsules. Not because the bacteria in those pills do not work, but because the delivery mechanism strips out everything that makes them work in food: the fiber matrix, the prebiotic fuel, the organic acids that help colonies actually survive your stomach acid. Meanwhile, the American digestive health and probiotic supplement market hit $17 billion last year. $17 billion. And 10 to 15% of American adults still suffer from IBS. Colorectal cancer rates in young Americans are climbing. Something is not connecting. Now think about your own kitchen. Think about the last 3 days. How many living, fermented foods did you eat? Not yogurt with 14 grams of sugar. Not a supplement. An actual food teeming with active microbial cultures. For most people watching this, the honest answer is 0. Now picture Ushi's kitchen. No supplement shelf. No pill organizer. A ceramic crock of pickled vegetables by the window. A tub of dark miso paste next to the stove. A small styrofoam tray of natto in the refrigerator. Free foods. All fermented. All alive. All under $3 combined for a week of servings. She had a pharmacy in her kitchen, not a cabinet full of capsules. So what is actually in these foods that Karen's $58 pill cannot replicate? Every morning in Okinawa starts the same way. Before anything else, a bowl of miso soup. Ushi makes hers the way her mother taught her. She boils water with a handful of whatever greens she pulled from the garden, maybe some sliced mushrooms, a few cubes of tofu. Then she takes the pot off the heat. This part matters. She waits. When the broth has cooled enough that she could comfortably hold the pot, roughly 60 degrees Celsius, about 140 Fahrenheit, she stirs in 1 tablespoon of dark miso paste. Never while the water is boiling. Boiling water kills the Aspergillus cultures and the Bacillus probiotics instantly. Every restaurant that dumps miso into a rolling boil is serving you flavoring, not medicine. Ushi knows this without knowing the science. She just does it the way it has always been done. And the way it has always been done happens to be the only way that preserves the melanoidins, powerful antioxidants formed during the fermentation browning process, and the live probiotic colonies that colonize the gut and strengthen the mucosal barrier. A large tub of real miso costs $4 to $6 at any Asian grocery store and yields about 25 servings. That is roughly 20 cents a day for a living probiotic food that a pill costing $2 a day cannot match. When Japan's National Cancer Center decided to settle the question once and for all, they tracked nearly 93,000 people and published the results in the BMJ in 2020. What they found drew a sharp line. Higher intake of fermented soy products like miso was associated with a 10% lower risk of all-cause mortality. Non-fermented soy showed no such benefit. The fermentation itself, the living cultures, the transformed compounds, was what made the difference. The soybeans alone were not enough. They had to be alive. But miso alone explains maybe 40% of what is happening in Okinawan guts. And the next food challenge is something most people over 60 have been told their entire lives. A few times a week, Ushi eats natto, those sticky, stringy fermented soybeans that most Westerners take one look at and push away. The texture is challenging, the smell is sharp, and it might be the single most cardiovascular protective food ever studied. Natto contains an enzyme called natto-kinase that literally dissolves blood clots. Not metaphorically. A review published in Biomarker Insights in 2018 confirmed that natto-kinase has potent antithrombotic, blood pressure lowering, and plaque preventing effects. But natto carries a second compound that gets almost no attention in the West, vitamin K2, specifically the negative 7-Malawian-Quatches form. What K2 does is redirect calcium. It pulls calcium out of your arteries, where it causes stiffening and plaque, and drives it into your bones, where you actually need it. If you are over 60 and worried about both heart disease and osteoporosis, this single food addresses both simultaneously. Here is the part that surprised even the researchers. Natto is also one of the richest dietary sources of spermidine, a compound that triggers autophagy, the body's process of clearing out damaged and dysfunctional cells. When a team at the University of Graz in Austria published their findings in Cell Reports in 2021, they found that higher dietary spermidine intake correlated with reduced cognitive decline and stimulation of what they called neuroautophagy, the brain literally cleaning itself. A food that costs less than $1 per serving simultaneously protects your arteries, dissolves clots, redirects calcium into your bones, and triggers your brain to clear out cellular debris. And it comes in a styrofoam tray at the Asian grocery store. There is a preparation detail that matters here too. Ushi stirs her natto vigorously with chopsticks, about 50 times, before eating it over rice. This is not ritual for ritual's sake. That physical agitation activates the natto-kinase enzyme and produces the beneficial sticky mucilage. If you just scoop it out of the package and swallow it, you are getting maybe half the enzymatic benefit. If the texture is truly unbearable for you, tempeh, an Indonesian fermented soybean cake, offers similar gut benefits with a firmer, more familiar texture, though with somewhat less natto-kinase. By the way, if you want all three of these foods laid out with exact quantities, sourcing, and a 7-day starter plan, I put together a free Blue Zone starter protocol. The link is in the description. But the most important thing is what comes next. The third food is the one most people have never even heard of. Not the vinegar-brined cucumbers you find in American supermarkets. Those are dead. Okinawan sukmano are lacto-fermented vegetables, pressed into beds of roasted rice bran and salt, alive with Lactobacillus plantarum. This specific strain is remarkably resilient to stomach acid, which means it actually survives the journey to your colon, where it produces short-chain fatty acids like butyrate. Butyrate feeds the cells that line your intestinal wall. It is the primary fuel source for your colon lining. Without enough of it, the barrier weakens, inflammation rises, and you get the cascade of digestive issues that send Americans to the gastroenterologist looking for answers that were sitting in a clay crock all along. Ushi eats a small dish of these pickles with almost every meal. A homemade batch costs under $3 and lasts a week. Now hold two images in your mind. Karen, standing at a pharmacy counter in a suburban strip mall outside Dallas. She is loading a basket with a $58 probiotic, a $30 digestive enzyme, a $25 fiber supplement, $113 for a month. And she will be back next month and the month after that, because isolated supplements do not build a lasting colony. They pass through. She checks her phone, mentally adding the cost to the $200 gastroenterologist copay from last Thursday. Now picture Ushi at her kitchen table. A bowl of miso soup, a small mound of natto over rice, a few slices of pickled daikon on the side, under $3. Every day, for 80 years. One woman is managing symptoms. The other never developed them. This brings me to the practice I promised you at the beginning. When Dr. Makoto Suzuki and Drs. Bradley and Craig Wilcox were compiling decades of data from the Okinawa centenarian study, over 900 centenarians tracked since 1975, they kept finding a variable that did not fit neatly into the nutrition columns. It was behavioral, cultural, almost philosophical. They nearly excluded it because it seemed too subjective to quantify. Their colleagues pushed back on it. They included it anyway. And when they ran the analysis against longevity outcomes, it explained more variance than any single food in the entire dataset. The practice is called hara hachibu. It means eat until you are 80% full. Before every meal, Okinawans remind themselves, sometimes out loud, sometimes silently, to stop before their stomach feels stretched. It is not calorie counting. It is not portion control with a kitchen scale. It is an embodied awareness of satiety that you practice until it becomes automatic. And the biological mechanism is profound. Mild daily caloric restriction, roughly 10 to 15% fewer calories than you would naturally consume, keeps insulin levels chronically low. That downregulates a pathway called mTOR, which triggers activation of the FOXO3 gene, often called the longevity gene. When FOXO3 is active, your body shifts its priority from cell division to DNA repair, stress resistance, and immune function. The calorie trials, the most rigorous human caloric restriction study ever conducted, confirmed that people eating just 11 to 15% less showed massive reductions in oxidative stress markers. And the Okinawa centenarian study found that FOXO3 expression was significantly elevated in their centenarian population. The fermented foods feed the gut. Hara hachibu tells the gut how much to accept. This pattern is not unique to Okinawa. In Sardinia, the traditional diet is modest in portion, heavy sourdough bread, minestrone, small servings of pecorino, eaten slowly, in company, at tables where leaving food on the plate is normal. In Ikaria, meals stretch for hours, portions are moderate, and no one rushes. In Nicoya, beans and rice and tortillas make a small plate, eaten with family, conversation between every bite. The longest-lived populations on Earth, independently and without communication, converge on the same principle: enough food to thrive, never enough to overflow. So here is the complete picture. Miso every morning rebuilds the probiotic foundation. Natto several times a week adds the enzymatic, cardiovascular, and autophagy layer. Pickled vegetables at every meal produce the butyrate your colon lining depends on. And hara hachibu protects the entire system by keeping the metabolic load low enough for your body to prioritize repair over storage. In the first week, you will likely notice something subtle: less bloating after meals, a steadiness in your energy that was not there before, the kind of shift you feel before you can measure it. By a month in, something deeper happens. Cravings quiet, appetite self-regulates, and the low-grade inflammation that most people carry without realizing it starts to recede. That is when the real change begins. At 90 days, ask your doctor to run 2 tests: a high-sensitivity C-reactive protein and an HbA1c. Those 2 markers will tell you what your body already knows. And by 6 months, if you have been consistent, you are not supplementing anymore. You have rebuilt. And here is what seals it. When Okinawans leave Okinawa and adopt a Western diet, the advantage disappears. Their children who grew up in mainland Japan or the United States, eating processed food, skipping the fermented staples, abandoning hara hachibu, they get sick at the same rates as everyone else. It was never the place. It was never the genetics. It was the practice. Ushi Okishima is still in her garden. 108 years old, hands in the soil. She will make her miso soup this afternoon and eat it slowly, leaving a little room in her stomach, the way she has done every day of her adult life. This is not destiny. This is practice. Tonight, find an Asian grocery store near you or order online. Buy 1 tub of unpasteurized miso paste, the kind in the refrigerated section, not the shelf-stable one. Boil water. Let it cool until you can hold the pot comfortably. Stir in 1 tablespoon. Drink it. That is day 1. Every week on this channel, we go this deep into one complete system from the world's longest-lived populations. Every protocol is sourced from real research, real studies, real people who have lived it for a century. If you want the next one, subscribe now. And tell me in the comments, have you ever tried natto? If you have, what did you think? If you have not, would you? I read every single comment, and your answer might shape the next video.